Today I wanted to go over a deck that I've been working on for quite a while in Magic, and it consistently, sort of, kind of, has done what I wanted it to, but it had no chance of standing on its own or being as fast or competitive as other modern decks in the modern format until the release of Modern Horizons 2. So now that we got some new toys to play with, I figured I would give the deck an update, kind of throw it out into the wild and see how it performs. And it performs really, really well. So I wanted to share my monstrous creation with you all, just kind of go over a basic deck tech of my iteration of Gruul Persist, and hope that you guys can, I don't know. If you want to give it a try, give it a try. I know I'm going to be giving it a try in Modern. Actually, looking forward to saving up a little bit and getting this deck in paper. So, going over the basic idea, if you've seen my Abzan Commander deck, you kind of know the basic idea as to how the Persist combo works. You need a Persist creature, something that toys around with the plus or the -1/-1 counters that put on Persist, so you can consistently get your Persist creatures back. You need a sack outlet, and you need a payoff. The thing about Modern is, with the way it's set up, the sacrifice outlets are the payoff, or are the payoff in addition to the sacrifice outlets. So instead of it being a 4-card combo, worst case scenario, it can consistently be a 3-card combo, which is kind of nice because the thing that really makes these 60 card formats different from Commander is that you don't have to worry about the singleton format. You can run up to 4 copies of any legal card that you want in Magic other than basic lands, which you can have more of, and that really bumps up the consistency for running a combo deck, which is really nice. It gets kind of frustrating when you're looking to build combo decks in Commander, because either the combo has to work around the Commander, or you have to have so many other tutors that you can try to make the combo work in Commander. But with the Persist combo, because of how many creatures and different card names have been printed that all fundamentally do the same thing for the combo, you can actually pull it off and get away with it in Commander. In Modern, it's very different. In the 60 card format, it's very different because you can run multiple copies of a card and likely increase your consistency. Even aside from that, there is enough cards to make it work in Modern. So Persist combo, I still think it has a place in a 60 card format metagame. And a lot of people are running the mono white version, probably because Saffron Olive did a video on it not too long ago. Might have been a couple years or so. I forget exactly when he did the budget mono white Persist combo video that somebody sent him. And mono white does have a lot of benefits to it. The biggest benefits are it being a single color, so you don't have to worry about color fixing or mana management or anything like that. So that's always nice for newer players, and probably the big reason why I recommend mono white for people who are starting off in Persist when they're looking into Modern or Legacy or whatever have you. But another reason that mono white is really popular is because you can run On Thin Ice and Path to Exile. So your removal package against creatures is really good, and that can help you stay afloat as you're trying to pull off the combo. Otherwise, it does the exact same thing. You get the pieces you need, you put them on the board, and you just win because Persist combo is the ugliest and most beautiful thing that I have ever seen in a long, long time. But branching out a little bit, kind of testing the waters, I wanted to try and run Gruul Persist, mostly because, with the Persist creatures themselves, the Persist creatures are super easy. You got Lesser Mastercore, you got Safehold Elite, and you got Kitchen Finks. Because of how their mana pips are set up, as long as you're running either green or white or both, you can run a persist combo deck very easily. But this doesn't have any white. It's all strictly green as far as these cards are concerned. So we got to pass on that. And then what could fundamentally make persist combo work in Gruul is that you do have access to green as opposed to mono white. So you have Melira, the OG that actually made persist combo possible, even all the way back in 2011 when it was a very clunky 4-color, 3-color, 4-color version of the deck. It still managed to work because Melira was the all-star, and because the card pool was so much smaller 10 years ago that modern decks weren't even that good anyway. Like, if you tried to take a modern deck from 10 years ago and put it up to what we got now, you're gonna have a rough time, buddy. But Melira, still relevant, still the all-star. And then you could theoretically make mono green work if you had Renata. You know, she's an addition that can fundamentally make it work. But instead, I wanted to throw red into the mix in order to get Rhythm of the Wild. Because with the way Riot works, whenever a creature enters the battlefield, we could choose to give it haste or a +1/+1 counter. Well, lo and behold, enters the battlefield, we just choose to give our persist creature a +1/+1 counter. Now all of a sudden, they're back to being, you know, the persist creature. So red was always a nice splash. Before I had this deck, before Modern Horizons was released and before Modern Horizons 2 came out, I used Greater Gargadon as one of the sacrifice outlets and then Blasting Station as the other. Now we have evolved and we have Alter Dementia from the original Modern Horizons. We also, in red, have Goblin Bombardment, where we can repeatedly sacrifice a creature to deal 1 damage to any target. It is essentially, you know, as long as we have red in the deck, it is a better Blasting Station. And Alter Dementia is just really good as a sacrifice outlet to begin with. So goodbye Gargadon, goodbye Blasting Station, hello Bombardment, hello Alter. So between all of those, between Rhythm of the Wild and Goblin Bombardment, now I think that green-red Persist can stand on its own 2 legs. There's another card that was released in Modern Horizons 2, which I really think helps push this deck over the edge, which is Ignoble Hierarch. It's kind of like Noble Hierarch, except Jund instead of Bant. So we essentially, what we're getting is, we don't care about the black mana that gives. Essentially, we pay 1 green mana for a mana dork that can tap for either green or red. We already had that with Birds of Paradise. And before Ignoble Hierarch was released, I did run Sylvan Caryatid, the 0/3 hexproof defender that adds 1 mana of any color. But with it being a green and a generic to cast, it was too slow. Since we only ran it because it was like one of the only other creatures that could consistently produce a red, you know, we had to run it. But now that Modern Horizons 2 is out, we have a 1 mana creature that can produce green or red. And let me tell you, that is absolutely fantastic. It makes this deck so much faster. You can consistently get a combo off on turn 3. If what you're doing is, like, let's say turn 1, one of your lands that isn't a mountain, tap it for green, give either Ignoble Hierarch or Birds of Paradise, pass turn. Turn 2, play down a land. Now you have 3 mana to work with on turn 2. You play your own Rhythm of the Wild. That's actually... And it also kind of works out because Rhythm of the Wild isn't too scary on its own. It's an enchantment that really helps with creatures, but if you're spending all 3 of your mana on turn 2 to cast a enchantment, and you don't really have any creatures, because this is just, you know, these 2 are just mana acceleration, they're not your standard attackers, then even by turn 2, you have your combo set up complete for turn 3. Nobody's any of the wiser because they still don't see it as a threat. And then by turn 3, hopefully you'll, all of this obviously assuming that you hit all your land drops. By the time you hit your 3rd land drop, you have 4 mana available. Pay 2 of it to cast either of your 2 mana sacrifice outlets that help you win the game, and then the other 2 for, hopefully either of your 2 persist creatures that also only cost 2 mana. So now you have your full setup: sacrifice outlet, counter negation, persist creature, everything is all good to go by turn 3. And you just go off without anybody being too concerned, because I doubt that they would be any the wiser. So that's why, Gruul is very fast, and it's also very non-threatening. It also feels very consistent. So that's a big reason I stuck with this deck. But working around it, there is another very, very big reason that I think Gruul Persist may potentially even be better than the mono white version, and that is the sideboard. This deck is a transformative deck. What that means is you have a deck that has a very specific game plan. In this case, we have a deck that's a persist combo deck. Cool. A transformative deck is one that has a certain amount of cards in the sideboard that as you swap things around, it becomes a completely different deck with a completely different play style. And that can really throw people off. What makes this even better is that the style that we're changing from and to is we're going from a combo deck to a kind of like mid-range aggro combat damage deck. Which, I know this next statement is a vast oversimplification, and you're going to have some people who, push up their glasses with their ring finger, all anime style, with the eye shimmer off the reflection and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, well, actually, see, well, no, yeah, there's going to be other archetypes. I'm oversimplifying it. But when new players are kind of getting into the game, one thing that they're consistently explained is Magic archetypes are kind of a game of rock, paper, scissors. You have combo, you have mid-range, and then you have control. Combo would beat mid-range would beat control, and control would beat combo. So you establish yourself, assuming you're doing the best of 3s, you establish yourself as a combo deck. If you find that you're up against a control deck, or other players have control elements in their sideboard that they will bring in against you because they know that you're going to be trying to be a combo deck, all of a sudden you could just turn yourself into a mid-range deck that beats out control, not only because, control can't keep up with the consistent damage that you're just throwing out onto the board as a mid-range deck, but even better than that, you kind of have a mid-range deck that doesn't care about any control at all. Because Rhythm of the Wild, this is one of the cards you're just keeping in the deck regardless, creature spells you control can't be countered. Another card we have in our sideboard is Prowling Serpapod, which, first off, cat snake. Let that sink in. Cat snake. It's beautiful. Fight me. Don't fight me. But Cat Snake says this spell can't be countered. Okay, so we have a creature that can't be countered. Also kind of nice against control decks. Creature spells you control can't be countered. So what'll happen is you would take Prowling Serpapod, you bring that into the deck, and then because you are not trying to be a combo deck, you're just trying to consistently be, a lot of creatures on the board, beat them down as you need to, you can take out your 4 copies of Altar Dementia. So you are essentially no longer you're setting yourself up so that you're not a combo deck. The other part that I like to play around with is, since, we're kind of adding consistent creatures and we're not too worried about trying to combo off, we still keep the combo in the deck in case it does kind of happen. We'll have a Goblin Bombardment, and of course, we'll have Goblin Bombardment if we need a sacrifice outlet. but I still think there's value in Greater Gargadon. So what I'll do is I'll bring in Greater Gargadon and then take out the Murderous Redcaps. So now all of a sudden you essentially have a completely different type of deck. You have 8 cards that specifically say creatures or creature spells you control can't be countered. So any creatures that you throw out can't be countered. And Greater Gargadon does fall under that because, of course, you're never casting it for 10 mana. That's not modern. You're suspending it for 1. And I don't believe that you can counter a suspending cast. I'll admit, despite how many Rift Bolts I've cast in my lifetime, I don't know exactly how suspend works. All the ins and outs, I'd have to see a rule book in front of me. But I don't believe that you're actually trying to cast the spell until the last suspend counter comes off, and then it gives you the option to cast a spell. So what'll happen is you suspend it for 1. You can use it as a sacrifice ally because it sacrifices an artifact, creature, or land, and then it has the colon there. So you don't have to do anything else. You don't have to tap it. You don't have to pay extra mana. You just have to do one of those things. And, of course, being a persist combo deck, we're going to be sacrificing the creature all the time. We get to remove a time counter from Greater Gargadon. What we'll do then is... I forget if Greater Gargadon has haste or not. I don't believe it does. Sorry, I'm just trying to remember this. Anyway, so yeah, we can use Greater Gargadon as like another sacrifice outlet. So even if we don't have Goblin Bombardment out, we can still get a lot of value out of our Persist combo in order to get, a 9/7 out on the field for 1 mana. And if part of our combo does happen to have Rhythm of the Wild, not only can Greater Gargadon not be countered because you're casting it as you remove that last suspend counter, but you also have the option to give it haste with Riot. So you have a hasty 1 red mana 9/7 that you can just swing in at a player. And if they don't have any way to deal with that, next turn, even if you don't kill them, even if you bring them down from 20 life to 11 life, they still have a 9/7 plus whatever other persist creature you've been using to, have fun with that. They still have to worry about those. If they don't have blockers or creature removal or anything like that, they're probably just going to be dead because they had no way of countering it. So, yeah, all of a sudden, I know I'm just repeating what I'm saying because I'm super excited about all of this. But what we end up with is a mid-range deck, which we cast out creatures that can't be countered, and that's only after sideboarding. Otherwise, let me and bring it all back here. Where's there we go. Otherwise, I'll admit I'm kind of bad at sideboarding. I didn't know exactly what to do after those 7 cards. So I just threw in 4 copies of Damping Spear because I don't like Tron and I don't like Storm. And I put in a playset of Reclamation Sage. Just because Reclamation Sage is really good. It's a creature that when it enters the battlefield, destroy target artifact or enchantment. You could do really whatever you want to. I do highly recommend these 7 cards that I talked about with the transformative sideboard. I think that's super helpful. I also would recommend at least 3 copies of Damping Sphere, but if you're better at building sideboards than I am, by all means, just straight up go for it. Honestly, if you have any suggestions as to what would be a better sideboard, I am more than willing to listen. But as it stands with this version that I have of the deck, I'm really happy with how this turned out. I saw slight potential when I first started brewing this, but now with the additions from the Modern Horizons, I think this has a place in the metagame, and I hope that eventually other people will pick up on that as well. As far as the land base, I don't know, 21 lands. I like Copperline Gorge because, you know, it's an untapped green or red that's very fast. Ideally, you're not going to be going more than turn 3 or 4 with this deck, so getting untapped lands out early, even if you draw 2 of these, and the rest of your hand is like Stomping Ground, or let's say a Stomping Ground and a Wooded Foothills, you play these 2 first, you're not losing anything, and then afterwards you could play a Stomping Ground and just take the 2 life. That's fine. Chances are your opponent's going to be dead next turn anyway. Or you could play the Wooded Foothills, only take 1 damage, and you can choose which of the 2 colors that you ideally want to start, and just kind of go from there. So yeah, I think I talked about enough about this deck. I think I'm actually going to try and hop into Magic Online and get some gameplay footage of this to show off the power of my horrifying creation. But not today. I'll save that for another video. Until then, take care and happy hunting.